and welcome to The Interview, HT's weekly talk show. Yet another Indian has done us proud. Bhavya Lal was recently appointed the acting chief of NASA. A great moment for her, her family, and all Indians. Welcome to the show, Bhavya, and thank you for being with us.
It's an honor to talk to you, Kumkum. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Let me begin with your India connection. How much of India do you miss? How much of it do you remember? And how much do you have within you?
Oh, amazing questions. I mean, I miss. I've been in the United States for almost 35 years, but I miss it all the time. My parents are in India, and I talk to them every day, multiple times a day. So it's nice to continue to have that connection. To your question about how much of it do I have in me? I mean, it's just I grew up in India. It is and always will be a part of me. um, you know Everything, I mean, all the values that I hold today come from what I learned as a young girl growing up, right? I mean, my mom, she taught me the value of hard work. My grandmother used to say, ये तुम्हारे बदन तो हड्डे हराम है जितना दोगे उतना मांगेगा. So you learn to work hard when you grow up in a family like that. Being vegetarian, I'm vegetarian. My whole family is vegetarian. My daughter, who grew up here, is vegetarian. So so many of the values that you learn as children just stay with you forever. I don't think that ever changes.
In fact, your mother's worry, one of her worries when you went to the US, was that you're a vegetarian, how would you survive?
So this is kind of funny. And back in 1985, when I came here, there was hardly any vegetarian food in the United States. It is now. Now you can get it everywhere. Even some of the most meat-oriented restaurants have vegetarian food. But my freshman year at MIT, it was a lot of eating of ice cream and grilled cheese sandwiches. So yeah, so I gained a lot of weight my freshman year because I was basically living on ice cream.
Was it because you were a vegetarian that drove you to ice creams? Because your profile picture also has eating lots and lots of ice cream.
No. I mean, I wish, but I mean, I grew up on a lot of ice cream. I remember when we were little, we didn't have a refrigerator. And for us, we would have this old-fashioned wooden thing where you put ice and salt and then milk in the middle and mangoes and any fruits. And then we would turn the crank and make ice cream. And it was the biggest thing of the month, or however often we were able to do it. And it's just such a part of my my being, that memory of all of us sitting together, first making the ice cream and then eating it. So it's just something that that just becomes a part of you. In this last year, I actually really spent time to learn and cook, and so I started to learn to make things that I grew up on. And I don't know if you know some of these UP things. There's this thing we eat called chila, which is made of besan. But chilas and dhokla is something I love eating as well.
Tell me about your DPS school days. I'm told you were always buried in books. Were there any fun moments?
We weren't pranksters. We were the goody two shoes of the school. But one of the funnest things I've ever done, and it's just so great that the social system allows for that. So some of us girls decided we were going to go to the planetarium in Delhi and ask them if we can do a project. And they were a bit shocked because they were not used to high school students coming and saying, "Hey, we want to do something." So the planetarium actually helped us to track sunspots. And so we actually built with cardboard and rubber bands and such, and watch the image of the sun for a period of about 6 months or maybe 9 months. And then we were able to say that the sun has a is at a low of sunspot activity, and that was a lot of fun.
Bhavya, even your fun moments are a lot of work. Give me a real fun moment.
I guess the fun part of even that planetarium activity was eating out, like going to the I forget where it was, but there was this, it's a very famous chaat stand. So on our way to the planetarium, we would go to the chaat stand and have golgappe and chaat papdi. And um, this is like something that's so quintessential Indian that it's even hard for me to describe it to my American friends. So when you eat the golgappas, that guy is like feeding 12 people and going so fast, right? And you're like trying to eat and breathe, and it's so spicy, and there's tears coming out of your eyes, and your nose is running. But it's just, I mean, it's just an experience. So, when people ask me, what's your favorite food? I mean, obviously, I can make a big list of my favorite foods, but that eating experience, that intensity, it's just very difficult to explain it to people who've never eaten golgappa in that way.
When you had some certificates which you wanted your principal to attest, at 50 he stopped and said, "How many more?"
Yes. I mean, it's I just had really wide interests. It wasn't all studying. I was, I used to paint in school. I played badminton, and I think it was my parents who actually collected them. If I had my druthers, I wouldn't even go get the certificate, let alone keep it. But my father carefully kept everything that that I earned. So it was, I was able to I was able to use it to get admitted to a good school in the United States.
While on painting, when you were in class 7, you painted and said, "I have painted the Halley's Comet." So even at that age, when girls would do dolls and trees and houses, you were painting the comets.
Yeah, I mean, I think my interest in science was just, I mean, it's hard to explain, but it was a fascination with space and discovery that that I've held on to this day.
You've typically done research when man would go to the moon, what NASA should do, etc., etc. Now, from there, in your current job, there is a focus shift. It's not when, but it's also how it would be done. So, tell me, how are you coping, and are you enjoying it? And this role shift from research and suggestions to actually human management, how is it working?
So you're absolutely correct. My whole life, I've kind of my focus has been sitting and thinking and writing and being creative. And now my work is a lot of working with. I mean, there's still a lot of policy, a lot of what should NASA do, where should we go, what are the next steps, and that is all exciting. But there is a huge component of working with people. So I find myself 10, 12, 14 hours a day on the phone. And I mean, obviously, if this wasn't the COVID time, I would be meeting people. It just happens to be video calls now. It's uh, um, it's more exhausting. So at the end of the day, I feel just spent. Um, so that's definitely a shift. But obviously, I'm enjoying it. I mean, I think you should never get kind of in a rut. It's kind of nice to challenge yourself.
Is it tough, and was life easier as a research scholar?
I would say it's more different than it is tougher. Um, Life was, yeah. I mean, as a scholar, you are reading, thinking. I mean, obviously, I'm still, I was still managing teams. There was still a lot of management there. Don't get me wrong, but it was a different kind of management. This is more sort of problem solving, where there's real life consequences. As a scholar, you can kind of sit and look at life, but when you are the chief of staff or the senior most political appointee at an agency, you are making decisions that have real life consequences in real time. So that adds to the stress of, I want to do the right thing. I want to make sure that I don't make any mistakes.
As an Indian, would you work more towards an engaging and meaningful relationship between ISRO and NASA?
That's a really good question. I mean, I've been here about 3 weeks and I'm still learning. Um, what are some of our long-term priorities? As well, space is a global enterprise, and we have to collaborate. We have to collaborate not just with traditional partners like European Space Agency or the Japanese Space Agency, Canadian Space Agency, but also spacefaring countries with a long history of space involvement, like India. So just next year, we have a really exciting joint project going up called NISAR, where we will be looking at the Earth and how and monitoring things like climate change on Earth. So there are collaborations underway, and I really do look forward to more of them. For the Biden administration, that I represent in some ways at NASA, diplomacy and global engagement are important priorities, as is climate change, and creating more innovation in our systems. So all of those point to greater engagement with countries like India, UAE, and others.
Former President Trump had spoken about expanding space exploration with India. Do you think under President Biden the policy would continue, or would it undergo a change?
I don't think I'm able to speak as much to that specific question, but I mean, in general terms, it goes without saying that that we just need. I mean, space is not only expensive; it is also very difficult. I don't think there's a way around more collaborations. And there, I mean, there's I think the CEO of Sun Microsystems said something like, no matter how many smart people you have, there's always more smart people elsewhere. So, given the problems we have in the world, we need to leverage all the smart people everywhere, including India.
Former President Trump had also said is pushing its limits in space exploration. Do you agree?
I would say, I mean, I don't know the Indian space program as well, and I actually would like to learn more about it. But I would say that, any country which has a space program is in ways pushing the boundaries of knowledge and exploration from where they are at. So, for India to be, for example, focusing on developing a human space flight presence is pushing the limits of where India has been at. And India is moving fast, and it is really exciting to see how amazing the progress of India has been. I mean, it's the only developing country which has an orbiter in the orbit of Mars, which is really, I mean, to think about it, pretty spectacular.
You're very close to your family, you're very close to your parents, yet your parents learnt about your appointment from a relative. Why didn't you make the first call?
I actually did tell them, but I didn't think it was. I mean, I text my mom all the time, and I don't think it hit her that this was a big deal, because I'm always telling her, oh, I'm doing this, and oh, I'm giving this talk. So she's like, oh yeah, this is another thing she's doing which sounds cool to her. So I think when the relatives started calling is when she realized it was kind of a major thing. But I did tell her. I mean, it's just difficult for me to kind of say to my own parents, hey, this is awesome, you should be proud of me, because I mean, I know they are already proud of me, but maybe I didn't make it as much of a big deal as I could have.
Initially, when you went to the US, you struggled with the American accent and the English language. How did you cope? How tough was it?
I have to be honest, Kumkum, the first year was just really, really hard. In fact, I would say my entire undergraduate years were pretty hard. And again, there was sort of no way to to accelerate the process. I mean, I had to learn to, I had to just get used to the American accent or the food or the different lifestyle. This was the first time I ever really left home. So living on my own. I mean, my first time I did laundry, I mean, I'm standing in front of the laundry machine going, I don't know what to do. And then I watched somebody else, do laundry, and I was like, oh, okay, I get it. And so I put all my clothes, I had a lot of white clothes and, obviously, lots of colorful clothes too. So the wash that came out. So for the first year, all my clothes were neither red nor white, but pink, right? So there was a lot of learning that happened, and it was just slow. And over time, obviously, it got better. And now I'm perfectly, comfortable in the surroundings in which I am.
Your mother was very reluctant to send you to the US, And one of her fears and was, I don't know if she told you, was बड़ा खराब देश है अमेरिका.
I think this Kharab Desh is a. I mean, I think all countries have their strengths and weaknesses, and I think so much of what we hear in India about the United States are the bad things. And actually, I see that here as well. So much of, like, what I see about India is also not about the goodness. I think this is just how it is, that we tend to look at what's bad in other places and good where we are. And I mean, I obviously don't think so, because I chose to chose to stay here.
Do your husband and children share your love of India and Indian food, or are they completely American?
So I have one daughter, a child. They love India. They love Indian food. And actually, what is so gratifying to me is that just recently, my daughter's in the final year of college, and so when I went to visit her this time, she has an apartment for the first time, and she said, "Okay, mom." Teach me. We need to go to the Indian grocery store. We bought that katora thing with the spices, and that was something that she asked for. And she's just like I am calling my mother and asking her for recipes. She's calling me and asking me for recipes. So it's just really gratifying to me to see that.
So, Bhavya, you've done so much in life. You have probably, by many standards, achieved and reached the top. From here, where, Bhavya Lal? How far?
um, so things are so intense right now, Kumkum, that I am not thinking as much about the long term. I just want to make sure I do a good job, um, doing the right thing at NASA. I think, yeah, I mean, long term, I would just like to um, focus. I mean, my big picture life goals are to make humanity a multi-planet spacefaring species. And I will probably spend the rest of my life trying to make sure that we are in space, and the human beings are able to live in space. It is going to be very difficult for example, live on Mars or other planets. And how do we do that? Do we need to change from being humans to, is it with medicine that we learn to live in other surroundings, or do we change those surroundings? So, for example, do we terraform Mars? So that's kind of where my head is at, and I will probably spend the rest of my life making sure that humanity has a long-term future in the universe.
Wow. Your mother trained in music and you also sing. Will you sing a little for our viewers so that we end this program on a lyrical rather than a scientific note?
Okay, so just with the caveat that I'm having some cough issues, so if some things go south, it's because of that. So my I don't know, I'm not a good singer, but I would like to maybe tell you about the song that. So when my parents first got married, and it was a traditional Indian wedding, and they had never met each other before, but they sang a song together just after getting married. So it's a special song for them, and I grew up listening to them. And the interesting thing is, I have never heard this song on the radio. I only know the version of the song that my parents sing. So I'm going to sing like one line from that, and if it's really bad, you can cut it out. छुपा लो यूं दिल में प्यार मेरा, कि जैसे मंदिर में लौ दिए की, तुम अपने चरणों में रख लो मुझको, तुम्हारे चरणों का फूल हूँ मैं सर झुकाए खड़ी हूँ प्रीतम, मैं सर झुकाए खड़ी हूँ प्रीतम, के जैसे मंदिर में लौ दिए की.
This was wonderful, and thank you very much for being with us, for answering all the questions.
Well, thank you. It was so nice to kind of be taken back to some of my early days of life, and I'm honored. Thank you for your time also.